economic squeeze that South Africans are feeling and how that is fueling a burnout crisis. You know, a lot of people are going to work, they are struggling. They really, really are struggling with the situation at work. They are overworked. They are finding it difficult to keep their heads above water. They're taking work home, so they're working all the time, and there isn't that boundary anymore between work and home life. And then, of course, you've got your unemployed people, right? Apart from the people who are in employment, but you know, their salaries are remaining stagnant, and so they're struggling to make ends meet with the current economic climate in which we find ourselves. So we're going to be speaking to a psychologist about what people are going through and how they can manage that. And then Tsipiso takes over the mic, and she is going to have a conversation with Steve Letsike, the Deputy Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, talking about the student uprising in Soweto and some of the echoes of that in the modern day. All right, let's continue with our discussions now. I'm guessing that we will have some calls. We should have some calls, and we should have some voice notes coming through. And I'm going to ask Genelwe, because today we're actually split. Melissa is up here with me, and Genelwe is downstairs, and she is holding the fort at main control, and she's going to put through some of your calls now. So I would love to hear from you. That number once again, 086 000 2032. Okay, so before we come to the calls, I'm just going to bring Sibahle into the conversation to get that update for you. As I mentioned, controversial figure Kat Madlala testifying at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria. He refused to comment on the controversial multi-million rand tender contract that he received to carry out wellness checks at the South African Police Service. SABC News reporter Sibahle Mota was there keeping a very close eye on proceedings for us, and she joins us now. Good morning to you, Sibahle. Firstly, why didn't Madlala want to speak about the Medicare contract?
I mean, you know, remember there is a criminal trial that is running in parallel to the Madlanga Commission. And ultimately, the first time he made an appearance through his lawyer, they had invoked, I think, Section 35 of the Constitution, saying that, you know, Madlala actually deserves a free and a fair trial. And this is possibly the reason why he would not, you know, be giving testimony before the Madlanga Commission. But then again, we saw that again play out, where they stated that there was a criminal trial and he reserves the right against self-incrimination, and he would not be commenting regarding that Medicare 24 tender because he didn't want what he said and testified about at the Madlanga Commission to be used against him in the criminal trial. So this is a sort of the theme that we saw really emerging during his testimony, where he would, you know, invoke that right against self-incrimination. So I mean, that's probably the majority of what we heard yesterday, but I think obviously it is both a strategy and a way of his lawyer just protecting him from saying anything that could incriminate him in that criminal trial.
He also strongly denied knowing Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, or that he asked the minister for a favor.
No, definitely. I mean, he did say that, you know, he has never met Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, and he has never even given him any money, even for his charity. And this allegations, if you remember, about this sort of money exchange between the pair had come from Brian Mokhotsi, the controversial Northwest businessman, and this alleged political fixer, where he was somehow extorting money from Kat Madlala and seemingly using Senzo Mchunu's name. And he denied ever knowing Senzo Mchunu. I mean, even him going as far as saying that he hates Brian Mokhotsi.
We have 20 spots.
Because he's caused so much trouble in his life. So, I mean, he has denied those links, but we'll see where the Madlanga Commission actually goes with that sort of evidence, and if they have possibly any sort of evidence to counter what he has placed before them.
So let's look at some of what he did speak about. How did he describe the raid on his home conducted by the Political Killings Task Team on the 6th of December last year, Sibahle?
I mean, he did confirm that raid that was conducted at his home on the 6th of December, you know, and seemingly it was as though Brian Mokhotsi again was somehow even feeding him this sort of information regarding that Political Killings Task Team, and even going as far as saying that Brian Mokhotsi was the sort of person who had actually, sort of pushed him to open a case against the PKTT. But what he did say is the fact that, you know, they seized some of his businesses, firearms. As you know, he has a security firm and some of his personal sort of firearms, and he realized that it was actually police who had raided his home and even booked in some of this evidence in the SAP 13. So these are the sort of evidence that we have heard from him coming from the evidence that he put before the commission, as well as describing this raid by the PKTT on the 6th of December.
What contact does he allege Brown Mokhotsi had with him after the raid?
I mean, Brown Mokhotsi had actually asked and pushed for him to sort of open, a case against the political killings task team. And as you know, evidence before the Madlanga Commission has actually stated that even Mokhotsi would even share some of these letters with him regarding Senzo Mchunu's alleged disbandment of the PKTT. So what you are seeing again is this middleman who is Brown Mokhotsi sort of using this information to sort of get an advantage, with Ket Matlala, and possibly even further just extorting some of that money from Ket Matlala. So this is exactly what we are hearing, and we are hoping that with the evidence that has emerged during, his testimony, then the commission can actually start to draw those links if there is any really direct relationship between Senzo Mchunu as well as Ket Matlala, that was allegedly sort of facilitated by Brown Mokhotsi. So we can expect this sort of, evidence when he returns next week, Monday and Tuesday, to sort of emerge again.
Just one last question, and this is about the friendship that Matlala intimated he had with Hangwani Morgan Maumela. How close were they, from what he has said, Sibahle?
I mean, you can tell that there's definitely a relationship, between Hangwani Maumela as well as Vusumuzi Ket Matlala. And as you know, some of this relationship is something that the commission was hoping to get even from Suleiman Karim, who, there's been quite a lot of monetary movements between the pair and even Vusumuzi Ket Matlala. So I think this is also one way that the commission can actually get to Hangwani Maumela. As you remember, Joy, and there's been quite a lot of questions from the public as to why is Hangwani Maumela, why is nobody seemingly investigating him, even with the IDEX saying that they are not investigating Hangwani Maumela, but rather Vusumuzi Ket Matlala. So I guess what the commission is trying to get at here is to sort of, get to Maumela through Vusumuzi Ket Matlala, and we can sort of see and hope that sort of evidence emerges when he comes back before the Madlanga Commission next week.
Sibahle Mota, SABC News reporter, thank you so much for putting us in the picture as to what happened yesterday, and we look forward to connecting with you once again once Ket Matlala is back on the stand at the Madlanga Commission. That brings us to 9:19. Let's take a short break. I'll take your calls when we come back.
Move with purpose from the first to the final job in a Hino 700 truck tractor. Available in either 410 or 450 horsepower. It gives you the flexibility to choose the right amount of power to suit your unique fleet and logistical needs. The Hino 700 truck tractor comes with a 6-year drivetrain warranty and 6-year service plan from as little as 1.9 million rand excluding VAT. Contact your nearest Hino dealer today to keep you moving. Offer available while stocks last. T's and C's apply. Hino, all the way.
Durban, the promenade is calling and the purple wave is taking over the East Coast. It's time to lace up for the Hollywood Bets Durban 10-kilometer road race on Sunday, 30 August. The race covers the beautiful tour of the city, combining urban streets, scenic coastal roads, and stunning beachfront stretches with views of the Indian Ocean. Catch all the action live on SABC2 and SABC Plus from 7 a.m. on Sunday, 30th of August. The Hollywood Bets Durban 10-kilometer road race, brought to you by SABC Sports.
Every generation.
Okay, Joanne, from here onwards, we only have the 40 spots left.
Has a voice. For 90 years, SAfm has been part of the conversation. This August, we listen back to the voices that brought us here. We celebrate the people who shaped our journey, and we listen for the voices that will shape what comes next, including the launch of a new annual SAfm property. This Women's Month, we are in search of an SAfm woman. 4 extraordinary women, 4 extraordinary journeys. One question: what does it mean to be an SAfm woman? SAfm 90 years. Women, a new voice. 90 years.
Okay, stand by.
A nation story. Our shared future. From 1 August, SAfm. The Daily Discourse on SAfm. Weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
21 past 9 here on the Daily Discourse, taking your voice notes and your calls at this hour. Let's listen to some of your voice notes. One of you talking about Matlala already being arrested, which is probably part of the reason for his silence.
John, I honestly feel like this situation is very unfortunate, but I think there's nothing that can be done because he's arrested and he has to face those charges in court and at the same time ask about the same charges at the commission. And there's nothing else really that we can get out of him in this situation rather than finding bits and pieces of information. So it's unfortunate, but I think had maybe the commission called him earlier before he was charged for these crimes in court, maybe the outcome could have been different. Thank you, Mr. Pofan.
Thank you so much for that. And one of you speaking about politics, political parties, that is, bombarding us with accusations.
Morning, JJ. Well, we are going to be lambasted as journalists because it's election time is coming closer and closer. Each and every party will accuse other parties of the wrongdoings because they want votes. Number two, please, guys, don't sexual abuse the mentally ill women or drunk women. Please, guys. Lastly, JJ, to fight depression, exercise bicycle, skipping rope, massage, so that you are not a victim of all diseases like stroke, heart, and kidneys. Thank you.
Thank you
JJ.
so much. Thank you. Thank you for those messages that are coming in, and keep them coming in on 0614 104 107. I'll take your calls now. Charlie in Koffiefontein is on the line to us. Morning, Charlie. You want to talk about white privilege?
Yes, good morning, Joanne and the team at SAfm.
Hi there.
I would like to talk about the white privilege that we have here in South Africa,
Yes.
which we usually would like to turn a blind eye to. Michael Lomas was given a suspended sentence. He was not going to, a 15-year suspended sentence. He's not going to go to prison. All this time, I think it's just that he should not do the same crime in a certain period of time. So that, but if he does it, then he's going to go back to jail. Now, this guy was arrested in South Africa. What did he do after he got bail? He fled South Africa. We spent years and years trying to get him back. Now, when he got back, he admitted to his guilt. Now, just because now he went into the courtroom with a walking stick, claimed to be severely ill, and we should check his age. Now the guy gets off scot-free. He was instrumental in his company receiving over 700 million from Eskom because he paid kickbacks to officials there. Now this guy is getting a suspended sentence of 15 years. The court says no, he's ill. The court says no, he's very old. And then because he admitted to guilt, so we'll just give him a suspended sentence. That is the epitome of white privilege. If we did not try and get him back, that guy would have never came back to South Africa. Am I lying regarding that? That is what when we talk about white privilege, Joanne, that is what we talk about white privilege. Okay. With white people, it's called accounting irregularity. With black people, it's called corruption. And I want us to also monitor this case of Buck very closely, the Chief Financial Officer of the DA, because I see that News 24 is refusing to also publish any story regarding it. I'm going to follow it very closely and find out that Yes, because the South African Reserve Bank is also on his case now. I think they've frozen his assets because of the 4 billion that he allegedly took out of South Africa.
Okay.
That was all that I wanted to say.
Charlie, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you so much for that. And tell us what you think
Thank
about
you.
what Charlie had to say. All right, let's take another call now. We've got David and Peter Maritzburg on the line to us. David, good morning. What's on your mind?
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. Briefly, to touch on what the latter caller was saying, remember the issue of Maria Ramos manipulating the rand, which is treasonous. She's still performing her duties as a director. But if you recall, the one for, I forgot her name, who was the chairperson of the SAA, the white organization made it a point that she's declared a delinquent. Before she died, she couldn't perform duties of being a director. Secondly, the issue of a white woman who faked qualifications was the chief of staff in Tshwane municipality employed by the DA. I don't even know her name. Maybe the DA has deployed her somewhere. She didn't pay back the money that she lied that she had qualifications. She was only removed in that position only because of white privilege. So whites are treated with kids' life whenever they are involved in corruption or crime, unlike in the case of black people. The media and other organizations such as the DA, OUTA, and others, they make it a point that they fight cases tooth and nail to ensure that black people are either arrested or declared delinquent. But I was not on that one.
Okay.
I was on the issue of Terry Oakley-Smith, the one that you hosted.
Yes.
She was talking about
the reality check this morning.
Yes, but I'm referring on your talk show. She was referring to the minorities, specifically Indians and Colored, being aggrieved because they feel that they are excluded. Yes, they are excluded in the BE and also affirmative action. Maybe for Colored, I can say to some extent I agree. But for Indians, I don't agree. Here in KZN, I can state categorically clear that Indians have benefited immensely on the BE system. And I can state that in terms of millionaires that are created by the system, Indians are a majority here in KZN because we are aware that the concentration of Indians is largely found in KZN.
Yes,
again, in the employment equity in eThekwini municipality, engineering and in engineering and other departments such as water, there's oversupply in positions from manager downwards. You can invite relevant departments to provide that stat. So they are highly benefiting in both the BE and the affirmative action. The typical example is Region Ready. I think it's the richest in KZN person through the BE system. So the information that Indians are excluded, it's a lie. If you look at the previous, the Model C schools, the employment there highly favors Indians and white. Black people are excluded and marginalized. The private sector is worse. You go to the private, any company in the private sector, go and check as to who is employed there. It's Indians and white people. They also exclude and apply doorkeeping when it comes to employment as well as SCM processes for black people. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, David. David, I can't respond because I don't have the numbers in front of me, right? What you say reminds me a little bit of what Mzwanele Mani said, where, we can't have so many coloreds in certain provinces, and, they must move to other provinces so that there's an even number. That does happen in provinces where certain provinces are racially skewed because of the geographical and historical background of those provinces, right? But having said that, in KZN, you are going to find more Indian people working. In the Western Cape, you're going to find more colored people who benefit from those processes, simply because of the history of it. Whether that's true of the rest of the country, and we're talking about, 8 other provinces or 7 other provinces, depending on which race you're speaking about, that may not be the case. And therefore, you may be oversupplied in one province, or overrepresented in one province, and underrepresented in other provinces. You may not find the same number of colored people or Indian people in Limpopo, for argument's sake, or in Mpumalanga, for argument's sake. So essentially, we need to take that into account as well. That it is looked at from from the point of view of the country. That is how BE is. It's looked at from a national point of view. All right, 9:32 on the Daily Discourse. Let's catch up with Anne Musa for your latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks, Joanne. In the headlines, the Gauteng Department of Education says teaching and learning in Nuclear west of Johannesburg has been disrupted following a shooting incident that claimed the lives of 4 youngsters at the weekend. 5 victims were shot inside a flat on Saturday. A Malmesbury teenager is due to appear in the local magistrate's court today after his arrest for alleged links to online child exploitation networks. The 16-year-old boy was nabbed yesterday following an international sting operation. And World Football's governing body FIFA has sacked its chief operating officer, who's one of the strongest critics of the organization's president, Gianni Infantino. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
The people are no longer interested in having equal rights with the white people in South Africa. They want the tables to be turned so that the white man can get a taste of his own medicine and feel what it was like to be oppressed.
Seychelles gained independence in 1976. A small nation with a global tourism reputation, tourism and fishing drive the economy. One of Africa's highest income countries per capita. But challenges remain. Climate change, rising sea levels, and economic dependence on tourism.
This is what we are becoming. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. The Daily Discourse, more than talk, real understanding.
9:34 on the Daily Discourse, and more of your voice notes coming in. Let's listen to a couple of them. One of you agrees with Charlie from Koffiefontein, who called in to speak about white privilege.
I agree fully with the previous caller who spoke about white privilege. Absolutely a fact where Michael Lomas is involved. But his ally has to take the fall. It cannot be that he is now too old to go to jail. But people in this country are still pursuing poor Jacob Zuma to go to jail. How does that work? Can we not say that is white privilege? It's absolutely hogwash. It cannot be that they are treated differently.
All right, thank you very much for
Hi,
that.
Johan.
And then, let's listen to this one that refers specifically to Wouter Basson.
And the SAfm listener, Johan, you see this white privilege, like I think is just a fortune from God. These people, they are very like all the time. You know, look at the Dr. Basson, look at the Eugene de Kock, what they've done. You give multiple things you cannot even count. It's countless. But if maybe it was a black, especially the black leaders people, they wouldn't even see like the light of the sun. You know, they're throwing them into the, like a lion's den, making sure that they're not coming back.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm sure that many of you have read what has come out in the last few days about the issue of a deal possibly having been negotiated between the government that was taking over, the ANC government coming into power, and the apartheid government as the new dispensation came in. And we're looking at cabinet notes for the first time that were essentially recorded at the time of that transition, where the apartheid government is speaking about the fact that that many people who would otherwise have been prosecuted in the new dispensation for their role in the apartheid machinery are possibly not going to be prosecuted as a result of the ANC government's efforts to build reconciliation in the country. So this is really, I think, the first sign that we have of something in writing that intimates that was what has happened. And many people would say that Voter Basson is exactly an example of that. All right, let's take some of your calls now. Mujamuka in the Eastern Cape is on the line to us. I believe you want to talk about the N2. Hi there, Mujamuka.
Okay, John. Yes, John. I want to talk about the road, the N2, between Mount Frere in Eastern Cape and Mount Elif. Mm-hmm. There is a construction company which is building this road between Mount Frere and Eastern Cape. That company is called Ramdale. Now, what happened? Last week, the employees of Ramdale and subcontractors closed the road due to non-payment. The employee and the subcontract closed this N2 due to non-payment by Ramdale. Okay. Subsequent to that, Ramdale reported or told us that Sanral did not pay them. Sanral is owing them the amount over 600 million for a period of 6 months. So Sanral is not paying Ramdale. As a result, the subcontract and the employee last week closed the road. Now the road here, the bypass road that has been... Hello, Juan?
Yes, I can hear you. Keep going.
Yes, the bypasses road that has been constructed by Ramdale. I mean, there are potholes all over the road. So it's difficult to drive in this road. And that's well. So, I mean, because Ramdale is no longer, they are no longer repairing this road. The work stands still. Now they are putting us, the motorists, they are exposing us to danger. Yes. Because people try to avoid these potholes and the little rocks on the road. You might hit the oncoming traffic. So please get Sanral involved in this. They must respond to this. Why are they not paying Ramdale? So that Ramdale can keep on doing their job, because they are exposing us to danger. The potholes, our vehicle, become affected. Yes. We might get involved in unnecessary accidents.
Mujamuka, thank you for flagging that with us. I'll see if we can follow that up on for you. Mandla is on the line to us from the Eastern Cape. You want to talk about corruption, Mandla? Hi.
Yeah, my sister, I'm in the Western Cape, Cape Town.
Oh, Western Cape. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Look, my sister was touched by a video on YouTube where a white guy and a black guy go to this rural area there and find a house where an old woman and there are a guy, which I think is her son, and a young daughter of 13, 14 years old. They brought food there and also money, And one part that touched me was when they gave this old woman money. And this young girl broke into tears. And I said, these tears are not tears of joy as such, but they are opening up wounds of poverty that is written all over that mud, dilapidated house. And I asked myself, why there's no RDP house for that stroke-ridden old lady? you know, and I broke down into tears vehemently, my sister, you know, and I'm saying these ANC looters and corrupt people, why doesn't common sense say talk to them? You know, in rail Transnet, they killed an engineer, Armand Swart, for his colleague, whistleblowing on a contract that was inflated. The springs that they were selling at 320 were inflated by this PE contract to 152 rand. So he was killed. You know, and I asked myself, God, why don't you from heaven just pour fire onto earth and just destroy everything that is called human race and start afresh with new people that are going to do right on this earth? When you steal public money, you are stealing from black poor people. Yes. I hear people talking about white people. Let us start to ask, because the officials on these departments are black people. The contractors are black people. There might be also white contractors, but the officials and the politicians are black people that are allowing and participating in this massive looting, my sister. In KZN, 2,000 households were supposed to be provided with water facilities. Only 700 households were provided. The rest of the money went to ANC, 10 million rand. That company had to give to ANC officials. And I ask myself, Steve Biko, Solomon Masagu, did you sacrifice your lives for ANC looters to destroy and inflict wounds to poor black South Africans?
No, I hear you.
Please, God.
Completely. Guys, is my mic still live?
Move with purpose from the first to the final job in a Hino 700 truck tractor. Available in either 410 or 450 horsepower. It gives you the flexibility to choose the right amount of power to suit your unique fleet and logistical needs. The Hino 700 truck tractor comes with a 6-year drivetrain warranty and 6-year service plan from as little as 1.9 million rand excluding VAT. Contact your nearest Hino dealer today to keep you moving. Offer available while stocks last. T's and C's apply. Hino, all the way.
Pedestrians, winter days are shorter. That means more walking in the dark. If drivers can't see you, your life is at risk. Wear bright or reflective clothing, add reflective strips to your school bag, and use a flashlight when walking at night. Walk in groups where possible. Being visible is not just a choice, it's your protection. Be bright, save your life this winter. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
SAfm. 12 official languages, from isiZulu and isiXhosa, Setswana and Sesotho, Seswati and isiNdebele, Chivenda, Sepedi, Xitsonga, to Afrikaans and English. Every voice carries part of the nation's story.
While today's youth does not directly experience the challenges faced by the youth of 1976, it remains our history and therefore relevant to us. History is not something that should be forgotten. It is something to learn from, so we don't repeat the same mistakes of the past.
This is what we are becoming. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
I can't hear.
For 90 years, South Africa has changed. Governments have changed. Generations have changed. Technology has changed. But through it all, one thing has remained. The conversation. From the voices of yesterday.
This morning to me, well, it took 8 attempts, but the Big Easy finally did it. South Africa's Ernie Els finally recorded his first win.
And it's just a month and a half until the start of the World Summit in Johannesburg. Now, most people are aware of the summit's goals.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that she has really paid a very big price for taking up music. Because what happened is that she left her daughter, one and only daughter.
You're listening to SAfm 104 to 107, and it's time for our music documentary series, The Music Makers. What is it all about?
To the voices shaping tomorrow. This August, SAfm celebrates 90 years of conversation. A nation's story, our shared future. SAfm turns 90 from 1 August. SAfm, the conversation continues. Catch them Mzansi's beautiful game sport documentary.
For me, Neto, really, in the club football, we have played a lot of my football to the ladies. At times, I would play as a striker.
From the 5th of July to the 23rd of August 2026.
Banyana performance is like Bafana's performance right now at the moment. So we believe in them and we're proud of them. What they did, they did wonders to the country.
Brought to you by the SAfm's award-winning drama department. Ala Bafana Bafana. This is what we are becoming. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. The Daily Discourse on SAfm, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
All right, that brings us to 9:47 here on the Daily Discourse. And of course, we are having a conversation with the Auditor General of South Africa about the issues of how they look after the public and serve our interests. And of course, this is going to be an ongoing conversation that continues for a number of weeks here on SAfm. If you've ever wondered who monitors how government is spending your money, or you've ever wondered what the Auditor General in South Africa does and why you should care, you need to stay tuned to SAfm over the next few weeks as we create a window, we open a window into exactly the work that gets done on the issue of looking after South Africa's resources and making sure that everyone who ought to be held accountable is held accountable. So in the upcoming weeks, we're going to open the doors of this institution to better understand the work that they do and how it affects our daily lives. Now, there are many listeners who actually are not aware of the work that the Auditor General does. And so we're going to bring into the conversation Dr. Tami Zikode. He's the acting head of audit at the Auditor General of South Africa. And good morning to you, Dr. Zikode. It was lovely chatting to you last week. And of course, we continue the conversation this week. And some of our listeners may have missed that initial conversation. So I'm going to take you back to the question of what the Auditor General's office actually does. What does AGSA actually do for our country?
Yes, Nafsan. Thank you once again for having me on your show. Firstly, I must say that I'm pleased to have this opportunity to address your listeners and provide an overview of our organization, and with the hope that by the time we conclude the series of the engagements, we will have more informed citizens that are better able to engage with the governing structures. So the biggest component of the Auditor General is mainly what we call auditing. But I'll take it a step back and reflect on how the Auditor General got to exist. So the Auditor General of South Africa is established by the Constitution, and it's mandated by law to audit and report on how the public resources, which includes taxpayers' money, are managed and utilized by the government. Auditor General of South Africa is also recognized as the South Africa's supreme audit institution. And in the international front, we are actually part of what we call the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions, where we provide a number of benefits to a number of institutions like the Auditor General in terms of capacity building and the like. So in fulfillment of our constitutional mandate, the Auditor General is required to audit public institutions annually and report on the outcomes of these audits to the relevant spheres and structures of government, including parliament, provincial legislatures, municipal councils, as well as the public, and which is where it becomes important, as you've mentioned earlier on. It's been years that the organization has existed, but a lot of people or the public does not have a clear view and understanding of why the Auditor General exists.
Yes.
And therefore, That's the reason why we are in this awareness campaign. The demand for public service continues to increase, while on the contrary, the financial resources within which the government operates are limited. And therefore, it is essential that available public funds are allocated and utilized appropriately, efficiently and effectively, with a clear focus on prioritizing service delivery and addressing the needs of the citizens, which makes then the Auditor General key in providing that necessary structure to deal with those issues. So in that context, the work of the Auditor General is particularly significant. Through our auditing process, we provide independent assurance on whether public funds are managed and utilized in accordance with the applicable legislative and regulatory frameworks, and they are used actually for the intended purposes. So what we mean is that if you are provided with a budget, at the back of you promising to deliver certain services, you must do exactly that. And that is what we are going to confirm at the end of the financial year, whether you've done that or not.
So this is really
Thank you.
interesting. And Dr. Sikode, I want to ask this because one of our listeners actually asked this question last week, and I gave a very superficial overview because I don't know your organization the way you do. But somebody asked the question, who does the Auditor General South Africa actually report to? And what are your oversight structures? Can you explain that to our listeners, please?
All right. Thanks a lot. I think let me also reflect. Prior to our democracy in '96, we used to report directly to Parliament, but it was done through a ministry. But subsequent to that, with the establishment of the Audit Profession Act and the independence that was provided to the institution, we then reported directly to Parliament through a particular committee called the Standing Committee on Auditor General. That is the committee that sits in Parliament, and they are exercising oversight on the Auditor General. So put simply, those are the police that police the Auditor General of South Africa. We are held accountable on all the activities that we do by the Standing Committee on Auditor General.
All right, thank you for that. Now let me ask you about this, because an ordinary member of the public listening to our program today would wonder. They see all these investigating organizations. They may look at, say, the Public Protector, or they may say the Human Rights Commission, and depending on what their complaint is, they may not know whether they can come directly to you or whether the complaint ought to be taken to another organization before it reaches you. Do you have any interface directly with the public? Do you deal directly with public complaints, or do complaints have to follow a particular channel to come through to you?
Okay, thanks a lot for that question. We do, first of all, we've got memorandum of understanding with all the Chapter 9 institutions and some law enforcement agencies. And at times we do get requests for investigations, and we do evaluate those requests for investigations according to our framework. But just to make it practical so that our listeners get informed in this particular area. First of all, there are matters that when we audit as Auditor General and we pick up irregularities, and part of those irregularities indicate elements of fraud and corruption as well as maladministration. We then hand over those matters either to the SIU or the Public Protector, and some gets referred to the Hawks for their investigation, depending on the nature of the item that we've picked up. That's the study, the first point. But then we do get individuals submitting requests for investigation on certain matters that relates to either a municipality or a department that they actually have got an interest in. What we do, we evaluate that request, and if that request fits squarely within our mandate, we then evaluate it in two parts. Can we conduct that investigation as part of the audit process? So put simply, we're not going to conduct a separate investigation, but we will infuse element of what is being referred to in the investigation as part of the audit process, where we're going to have specific selection if it relates to a transaction, and we audit that so that we can get to a conclusion on that particular matter.
That's very
if it doesn't fall...
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Zikwede.
Yeah. Then, if it doesn't fall squarely within the mandate of the AGSA, we then evaluate which appropriate body that needs to be referred to, and we refer it directly to the particular body that should then investigate it. Then the crux of the issue here is once we've investigated that, we don't issue a separate report to the person that actually submitted that to us. We just report it as part of the audit and we leave it at that. So that is how our mandate actually operates.
Very interesting indeed. And I'm glad to hear that you're working hand in glove with all the other investigating organizations so that, of course, you're not working in an isolated fashion. I have a last question about the types of investigations that you run. Do you only investigate essentially public organizations, so in other words, governmental organizations, where there may be a complaint of some kind about corruption or the mishandling of funds in any way, or do you also investigate private entities?
The Auditor General's mandate only looks after the public sector entities. So it will go for the public sector departments, entities, municipalities, and the like. Private sector entities, if for an example, again I'm making an example, we realize that there is a particular matter which is a non-compliance matter, but it affects both the public sector entity and there is a private sector role player that is also involved. We then take that matter through to the SIU because their mandate then it's expanded. It goes beyond what we can do as the Auditor General of South Africa. So Auditor General of South Africa, it's mainly the public sector institutions.
All right. Now tell me, in a case that involves perhaps an allegation around corruption that might have occurred across both the public and private sector, where you had one entity that was a government department or a government organ, and a private company that might have been involved or is alleged to have been involved. How do you manage an investigation of that kind, Dr. Zikode?
I think the first issue that we do is we deal with the non-compliance matters or any corruption matters that we can pick up. So in other words, what law was broken and how did that happen? When we are done in terms of the audit process and we've got to a conclusion regarding that particular matter, we then prepare and submit a pack following our memorandum of understanding, and then we submit it to the SIU and we say to the SIU, this is a matter of interest which involves both the public as well as the private sector entities. We've dealt with the part on the public sector entity. You're therefore going to have to go and do the private sector entity. Then what they do is they still look at both, and the intention of looking at both is they're going to go way beyond what the Auditor General will go through in the audit. For an example, when we audit and we pick up issues in the procurement space, we do not get to look at, things like the cell phone records, who communicated what to who before the tender was issued and the like. We simply focus on the sufficient, appropriate audit evidence. In that case, it stems from the request for proposal, which is the RFP process, all the way up until the appointment process. So there are processes that fall squarely outside of what the AGSA can do, and that is where SIU becomes an important partner in ensuring that they then close those particular gaps. And through their processes, then they are able to go an extra mile in picking up all those records that we did not look at as the AGSA. But the groundwork we would have done, would have confirmed there is an non-compliance, would have confirmed that there is an element of possible fraud or corruption, and would have pinpointed who are all the people that are involved in that particular scenario.
Thank you for explaining that to us so well, Dr. Thami Zikode, Acting Head of Audit at the Auditor General of South Africa. Thank you for your time, and we're going to have many more of these conversations in the next few weeks as we learn more about the office of the AGSA here on the Daily Discourse on SAfm. That brings us to exactly 10 o'clock. That means we connect with Anne Musa for your latest news bulletin.
In our top stories, teaching and learning disrupted after fatal nuclear shooting, and insurance murder trial resumes as state calls key witness. Good morning. The Gauteng Department of Education says teaching and learning in nuclear west of Johannesburg has been disrupted following a shooting incident that claimed the lives of 4 youngsters at the weekend. 5 victims were shot inside a flat on Saturday. However, the motive for the attack is not yet known. One of the injured is a learner from R.W. Fick Secondary School in Johannesburg. Gauteng Education Department spokesperson Onwabile Lubalwana says the department is prioritizing the safety of learners and educators amid recent violence. He says measures are being put in place to ensure teaching and learning continue.
Learners who missed their preliminary examinations because of the unsafe environment will be afforded an opportunity to write. MEC Maile is also troubled by the proliferation of dangerous weapons, including guns, among young people. The department will monitor school safety while relying on the South African Police Service, including the anti-gang unit and other law enforcement agencies, to maintain law and order.
Please note the following story contains graphic details which could upset sensitive listeners, including children. A Malmesbury teenager is due to appear in the local magistrate's court today after his arrest for alleged links to online child exploitation networks. The 16-year-old boy was nabbed yesterday following an international sting operation. Police spokesperson Amanda van Wyk says he was identified during investigations with international law enforcement agencies. Van Wyk says authorities confiscated electronic devices which allegedly uncovered explicit images and videos depicting child sexual abuse and animal mutilation.
The operation was led by the National Seki team, supported by members of Head Office Occult Unit, the Paul Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit, Paul K9 Unit, and Western Cape Crime Scene Investigation Unit, as well as agents from the FBI and Homeland Security Investigations U.S. Embassy. A preliminary on-site analysis of the suspect's electronic devices uncovered explicit images and videos depicting child sexual abuse and animal mutilation. The devices will undergo comprehensive forensic analysis to determine the full extent of the alleged offences.
Another key state witness is expected to take the stand today when the trial into the alleged murder of Wanta Dlamini resumes in the Mpumalanga High Court in Mbombela. Dlamini was allegedly killed 6 years ago in a plot linked to an insurance payout. Medical reports indicate that she was strangled and raped before her body was dumped at a local dumping site. 3 accused, including Dlamini's daughter, are currently on trial for her murder. They are facing premeditated murder, rape, kidnapping, theft and defeating the ends of justice charges. The Food and Allied Workers Union says the recent 5.4% wage increase tabled is not enough in light of the rise in the cost of living. This as sugar industry workers in South Africa continue their strike action after wage talks between FAO and the Sugar Manufacturing and Refining Employers Association collapsed. Its media officer, Dominic Martin, says they went back to their demand of a 13% wage increase after the employers rejected the CCMA's 6% intervention.
CCMA intervention was requested and the Commissioner actually proposed a 6% increase, of which majority of Labour was willing to accept. Because as we all know, inflation has gone up, food prices, fuel prices has gone up. A 5.4% will also that doesn't really add any value and real wage growth that workers can feel. But at this point, employers also rejected that proposal, which then led Labour to revert to its original position. I mean, workers cannot survive on 5.4%. It's just not enough anymore.
And finally, World Football's governing body FIFA has sacked its chief operating officer, who's one of the strongest critics of the organization's president, Gianni Infantino. Last month, Kevin Lamar said plans to sell parts of the World Cup and other tournaments to private investors deceived staff. The BBC's Dale Johnson reports.
This is significant because Lamar spoke out from within World Football's governing body. Lamar held a senior position as FIFA's chief operating officer and had a place on the management board. But when news of Infantino's sell-off emerged, Lamar said it was the project of one person and that FIFA's own administration was deceived about the now abandoned plan. So Infantino has acted and removed one of his fiercest critics from within the organisation.
Recapping the top story, the Gauteng Department of Education says teaching and learning in New Clay west of Johannesburg has been disrupted following a shooting incident that claimed the lives of 4 youngsters at the weekend. 5 victims were shot inside a flat on Saturday. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
For 90 years, South Africa has changed. Governments have changed. Generations have changed. Technology has changed. But through it all, one thing has remained: the conversation. From the voices of yesterday,
the situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo is not improving.
Good morning and welcome to the Sunday edition of the JSB House. I'm Michelle Constant.
If a union treasurer is popular, then there must be something wrong with the finances. You are extremely popular this morning, Minister Manuel. Is there something wrong with our finances?
It's a very good evening, or rather afternoon, to you, Mzansi. Welcome to Otherwise on SAfm, South Africa's news and information leader. My name is Charlotte Pallet.
So, you know how important social grants are, right? And it turns out that there's a big study that's been done. The University of Johannesburg's been looking at it.
To the voices shaping tomorrow. This August, SAfm celebrates 90 years of conversation. A nation's story, our shared future. SAfm turns 90 from 1 August. SAfm, the conversation continues. Years of conversations, recaptured, relived, and projected. SAfm.
Hola, my name is Colin Zwani. I'm from KZN, and I just wanted to say congratulations to SAfm on their 90 incredible years. Thank you for being the trusted voice that has informed, inspired, and connected so many South Africans through the generation. Wishing you many more years of excellence and impactful broadcasting. Happy 90th anniversary, SAfm. Enjoy.
From the voices that shaped our past to the conversations defining our future. SAfm celebrates 90 years. The Daily Discourse on SAfm with Joanne Joseph, unpacking the issues that matter. The Daily Discourse on SAfm, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
8 minutes past 10 here on the Daily Discourse. We are in the second hour of the program on this Tuesday. I'm Joanne Joseph. Great to be with you as always. And if you just tuned in, welcome. We are about to take you down memory lane because you're going to hear a familiar voice who was on SAfm for all of 10 years. And that's apart from the wonderful work she has done in other parts of the media, including television. And she now finds her place on Channel Africa. And this is, of course, Tsepiso Makwetla. She is a popular voice, and she has, as I said, for 10 years on SAfm, hosted a range of programs. So I'm going to remind you that you are also able to have a conversation with her on this hour as we reflect on our 90th birthday celebration and what has been achieved by individual voices on the station over the course of this time. Now, I'm going to ask you to give us a call if you want to have a chat to Tsepiso, or perhaps just send her a goodwill message, 086 000 20 32. And of course, 0614104107 is our voice note line. Perhaps you just want to send a text, but we'd love your good wishes for Tsepiso as she continues her important work in the media. Good morning, Tsepiso. So lovely to have you with me.
Good morning, Joanne. Lovely to be here. A blast from the past, as they say, but it's so strange because one is here, we're still in the same building, all working together. So.
Yeah. No, it is great, and it's wonderful that you're still here, although you are on Channel Africa, where you now present Rise and Shine. I think your last show on SAfm was the 5 to 6 a.m. show, eye-wateringly early, First Take. And thank you. I know you worked on Channel Africa this morning, so it makes it a very long day for you, but thank you very much for making yourself available to have this conversation with us and to take over part of the show from me today as well.
No, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure, Joanne. Yes, early start to the morning, and indeed, I used to think First Take SA was early in the morning.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's the passing years or not, but it feels like a more comfortable fit now because throughout my career, I've done a lot of shifts. I remember when I was still at Prime Media, I used to do the Rude Awakening with Jeremy Maggs and
Yes,
Sam
I remember that
Cowan.
very
Yes,
well,
and
yes.
so then I used to be up at 3 in the morning. And then fast forward and it changes with the decade or whatever, but I was working late at night in the latter part of my career. So I'm enjoying this breath of fresh air that I actually do force myself to be in bed. Sometimes I'm in bed at 8 p.m. and it's like, it's wonderful. Whereas in the past, it probably would have been like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m.
Yes, that's very familiar to me right now. But are you a morning person? Is that why it's easy for you?
My brain works better in the morning.
Does it? Okay.
The body...
The body not so much.
Not so much in agreement, eh?
So tell me, you've been in the industry for over 30 years, right? And you were talking about some of your past endeavors, but where did it actually all begin for you, Tshepiso?
It's an interesting question because I was with a cousin of mine in December. We were actually there in Vilakazi Street and, we're taking somebody around.
Yeah.
And he was saying he remembers that from the age of 16, I was dubbing myself, reading the news, having interviews. And I do remember, I think it was a 15th birthday present, so it was those TDK cassettes.
Yes, those very well.
So yes, I used to do that. So in a way, you could say it began there because I was conscious that I wanted to be a broadcaster. But, back then there wasn't much of a distinction. And even now, I find in some cases between a journalist, a broadcaster, and, well, now they say influencer. And they kind of lump us all in the same, pot, so to speak.
But these are very different skill sets, right?
Absolutely.
And I want to make the distinction between that because that adaptability required to be a great broadcaster becomes quite important. Whether you've done a breakfast show on a music station, that's very different to what you're doing right now on Channel Africa. You've done TV. These require quite a lot of shape-shifting, don't they?
And when I reflect back, it's a good thing that I wanted to be a broadcaster. I just became, but I always was interested in politics. I come from a family that's active in that arena.
Yes.
So it's interesting because when I started really doing news and current affairs, so I did my broadcast training at Prime Media.
Yeah.
702 ran a competition. And I remember Robert Marawa, Nadia Levine were part of that. So I think there was about 6 or 7 of us who won a slot there. So did that broadcast training with 702, then was offered a job at 94.7 as a cub reporter. I think that's when it clicked that this is what I've been wanting to do. Do news, but be active, reporting, writing. So yes, I mean, it's 6 degrees of separation in some way or the other, because the anchor point is news and current affairs, which I love. And while we're speaking about that, I'm sure you'll relate with this, how a lot of people don't realize that there's news and current affairs and being a talk show host as well, which is also a different discipline altogether.
Very different. And I think, this shifting between the different media requires quite a lot of brain work and requires quite a lot of, I think, experience as well. Something which you have quite a lot of. And I'm interested to know, what do you enjoy more, radio or TV?
I've always said radio is my first love.
Really?
It just makes sense to me because that's where I fell in love with broadcasting.
Yes.
People like, if you remember, may her soul rest in peace, Alice Chavanduka, somebody who, I'm humbled to say is a very close friend of mine, Desiree Chauke, would watch her.
Yes.
People like Sis Shadow Twala, those are the people that really made us intrigued by the medium. And I suppose it also depends on how you interpret it, because I remember when I got to 702 and I was doing some of that training, and they're like, what are you doing? Because I'd be back announcing a song. And they'd say, why would you back announce? It was a whole culture in itself. It was a movement at a time. So I love radio because of that. It tells a story of a people in different eras, but also the expression of, I would say, South Africa's black condition that comes along with it as well. So, I mean, television, it's great in the sense that it's also a different skill set, you know. But I like focusing on the conversation rather than, hey, your collar's sitting skew.
Yes, yes.
Or
You don't like
why
that
is she
shade
wearing
of
that
lipstick.
dress? Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay, but you mentioned something important there, right? Because when we came into the industry as youngsters, there weren't a lot of black faces on TV. Certainly, there were more black voices on radio. But to break into that scene where young black girls and women were for the first time seeing faces like yours, it actually made a huge difference, didn't it? And it was, you were part of a transition from an era where the voices of authority were largely white and the faces of authority were largely white. Did you ever feel as a young woman in the industry, did you ever feel the weight of that on your shoulders?
Oh, 100%. And I was being made to feel it as well. Remember, I started off reading news at 94.7 Highveld Stereo when it was just bought from the SABC, when it was just Highveld Stereo.
Yes.
And I remember in particular incident was somebody with a very heavy Scottish accent who was asking me, what am I doing on the radio? That he could barely understand me.
Sure.
And you are judged even on the other side of the tracks of, oh, this cheese girl, we are kusha, twanging. It's not that. You go to a private school, which obviously from a very early age, they teach you those things. And it was a bit confusing because I had teachers from Ireland, Scotland, who were English, and then later on there was an aunt of mine who grew up in the US, so that got thrown into it. You know, you kind of are pulled this way and that in terms of how you finally come up with what people say are your accent.
Yes, yes.
Sometimes it's just not a choice. That's the various influences form, you know, your diction, including the training. You're taught to enunciate in a particular way. I remember my niece saying to me once, why do you talk like that when you work? I'm working, girl. I'm talking English. You've got to be clear.
Yes.
And I'm just saying that it's not a vanity project. It's just, it's practical. And unfortunately, there are a lot of things that come with it. But I'm happy for it all because then we really were part of that change and a very conscious change in terms of also, and as you would know, Joanne, when you come into a newsroom, people have all kinds of opinions about who you are, how you sound, how you look, especially for a visual medium like television, and whether or not you are appealing to the eye or the ear. True. Your purpose is what should really stand out for you, and that's what I've always been very happy to do and take those punches for that reason, because you're not going to sit there and tell me what my lived experience is when I can do it myself and I have a passion for doing it.
Yes, yeah. And look, let's face it, it's not just the passion, it's not just the training, but there's an element of flair that comes with the job, right? Let's face it, there's something that turns you on when you hear your logo music playing, right? You come alive, and in that moment you command the room. And as a woman, particularly a black woman, we had to get ourselves into the mindset of what it means. This is something that Tumi Magabo said to me as a young broadcaster. You have to feel like you own the room when you walk into a bulletin to read it. And it's a hard place to get your mind as a black woman broadcaster. But you have to get to the point where that becomes your mindset as you go in to tell the nation about what they need to know.
And it's interesting when you talk about flair, because sometimes people also confuse that for, by personality, I mean a charisma of a sort, whereas you as an individual, you know what you lean on in terms of what centers you, what anchors you, and you're absolutely right, Joanne. It is very daunting to be on stages. I've been on stages where I just thought, hey, you are doing this.
Yes.
And I laugh
pinch
because
myself.
not even pinch yourself, but because you actually have to manage the situation. Right. You've been hired for a particular job. And I remember, I think it was 2017 when the World Bank and the WHO were launching Universal Health Coverage Day, and I was one of the co-hosts in Tokyo. And something went horribly wrong, and my solution to it was, while we fix this, I'm going to make everybody do the Mexican wave. And I remember Dr. Tedros laughing because it seems like you can really tell people what to do without even questioning it. And it's those things that you look back, you look back and you think, well, that was the job, and you as a person, your personality, they kind of find them. You weave through that tapestry, So it's not as if there are people who are necessary. There are people who are made for certain jobs, and it's your portion. But as you say, there's a training. There's so many layers to it that I do find it very sad sometimes when people say, "Oh, you just go on air for 3 hours. What does it matter?" Like they're very flippant, about
somebody
what we
gives
do.
you a script.
And there's a lot of work. There's a lot of discipline that goes into that.
We're going to take quite a number of calls from our listeners who want to speak to you, and they have some important things to say to you. I'm going to take a short break. When we come back, let's have those conversations, Sipiso.
Every generation has a story. Every generation has questions. Every generation has a voice. For 90 years, SAfm has been part of the conversation. This August, we listen back to the voices that brought us here. We celebrate the people who shaped our journey, and we listen for the voices that will shape what comes next, including the launch of a new annual SAfm property. This Women's Month, we are in search of an SAfm woman. 4 extraordinary women, 4 extraordinary journeys. One question: what does it mean to be an SAfm woman? SAfm 90 years. Women, a new voice. 90 years of conversation. A nation story. Our shared future. From 1 August, SAfm. Call SAfm now on 086 000 2032.
10:23 on the Daily Discourse. We are in conversation with the wonderful Tshepiso Makwetla, seasoned broadcaster, both a face and a voice that you know very well. I want to take some of your calls as promised. Bonakele Nkayalicha is on the line to us. Bonakele, good morning.
A very good morning as usual, and good morning to Tshepiso. And a happy 90th. I'm very good, and yourself?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, look, there's probably 3 questions that I would like to ask you. Who actually inspired you to do, especially on the radio side, and who was the manager, station manager during the time you joined SAfm, and any awards that you won during your time? Have a nice one, and good to hear your voice once again.
Thank you, Bonagelo. Who inspired me? So SAfm came along the journey, and as we mentioned, I was from Prime Media. I came here to the SABC TV newsroom. I think that's when we first met Joanne. Yes. So I was doing TV news, writing, producing, and then I was approached to come and be a fill-in, and it was such an amazing honor. I remember it was Carolyn Dempster at the time, and at some point later on Sally Burdett, so I was their stand-ins, and so the journey went along. In terms of the station manager, so I can't remember, and I'm really sorry when I get a bit. There's so many people who I thank for the journey I've been able to traverse, because there's always somebody who is in your corner. Even those who you seem to think are impeding you actually help you along whatever path. And as to who, there's so many women. I mentioned Desiree Chauke now, who was formerly Makota. Shadow Twala, who was here at SAfm, and I remember when I'd go down to the Cape Town offices, I tried and make time to spend with her. So there are quite a few women, and some you don't always remember off the bat, but certainly I remember Carolyn Dempster, Sally Baudet are people that I really held in high regard here at SAfm.
Yeah. And let's take a call from Mosquito in Umlazi. Mosquito, good morning.
Joanne, how are you?
I'm so well, thanks. I'm all the better for having Tsepiso with me this morning.
Hi, Joanne. My two favorite ladies there, absent Bongwezwane and Sikim Kabateri. But I'm sorry, just that I'm in and out. I'm here in Pimpation in Cape Town, but I'm in and out working as a sales rep, so I couldn't quite hear what I wanted to ask, whether maybe Tsepiso has already explained. The way she's so fluent in English, not to look down on African languages, but the way she's so fluent in English, I couldn't quite hear. I didn't hear whether she did explain it. Did she stay in the U.S. or was she born here and stayed here? The way she's so fluent, the way I used to love to watch her, listening to the news, SABC3,
Yes.
and also on SAfm. So can she kindly answer me? Was she did she stay overseas or she was born here and then she's so fluent that she went on multiracial schools? So can she please answer me there?
I think
Okay.
Mosquito missed that bit of our
Thank you for that. I went to St. Dominic's Convent, so I did my whole schooling in Boksburg, yes. And I was born here, Kimopedi, a very proud Pedi girl. My roots are from Limpopo. My uncles laugh at me. They think I think I know how to speak Sepedi, but I think I do get by. I do speak Soto, Zulu, and I'm fairly competent in that. But I've also had great trainers. You know, as I said, you get vocal training, you get broadcast training, all of those things. And this is what we came up with. and also years of, you learn from your mistake. You get people who are really great, Joanne, who guide you and who,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, thank you for that lovely call, Mosquito. And then Romeo in KwaZulu-Natal is on the line to us. Romeo, good morning.
Good morning, JJ. Today you're hosting someone very special, very, very special. My first time of interaction with Sister Tsepiso, I was so scared because I used to say, all those years, I used to say, if she's going to ask me a question, how am I going to answer? Because this lady, I'm telling you, she's so fluently in English and she asks so hard questions to an extent that sometimes even you could feel pain for politicians when they are being asked the question. You see someone is struggling. And I said, how am I going to do it today? Congratulations. Thank you very much for bringing it back to the radio to hear your voice. I was wondering, where is she? Where did she go? She's nowhere to be found. We can't hear the voice. All the time we are always on the road. Sometimes even people are transferred to certain divisions of the radios. We may not understand where are you now or you are at the TV. We are always on the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Once
very
again, greeting to you, my sister. We are very proud of you.
Thank you, Romeo, and it's lovely to hear your voice. I mean, it's so nostalgic to hear some of these people that I used to wake up with, some in the afternoon drive home to. So I'm really touched. Thank you so much, Romeo.
Oh, and by the way, I think let's answer that question for Romeo. How does one listen to Channel Africa?
So Channel Africa is a digital-first platform, but we are on DSTV, Audio Bouquet, Channel 802. We are also on OpenView. I think it's channel 625. We're streaming live on Facebook. We stream live on YouTube. But we're also on the SABC Plus app.
And that is a wonderful app, right? 3 million plus people agree. So please download it if you haven't already. You can listen to Tsepiso among many other people there. Just one last voice note before we go to the headlines. Well, not a voice note, a text. Joanne Tsepiso was one of the people who made me listen to SAfm alongside Jeremy, John, the late Klanani, Bongi, Brotim and Ike, Krivani and the late Vuyo, and many more at this station. And it is nice and great to watch her doing great at her current job and also Bradan, says TG.
Oh, thank you, TG. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to headlines. We will continue the conversation. Lots of your voice notes as well that I want to take before we get into, or before Tsepiso, in fact, gets into her next conversation. Let's get latest headlines right now with Rondela Mbana.
Good morning. Thanks, Joanne. In the headlines, the Matlanga Commission has heard evidence of WhatsApp messages detailing plans for a demonstration of sophisticated cell phone surveillance technology. The contents of the messages were read into the record by Chief Evidence Leader, Advocate Matthew Chaskelson, after they were extracted from the cell phone of the late taxi boss, Mswazi Msibi. The Gauteng Department of Education says teaching and learning in Nuclear west of Johannesburg has been disrupted following a shooting incident that claimed the lives of 4 youngsters at the weekend. 5 victims were shot inside a flat on Saturday. And residents of Oudtshoorn in the Little Karoo remain without electricity for a 4th consecutive day following a power outage on Saturday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 11.
From the voices that shaped our past to the conversations defining our future, SAfm celebrates 90 years.
Harmony Gold Mining Company Limited congratulates the 2026 Enactors South Africa national champion Nelson Mandela University on their Batupele Bioloop Africa project and for the passion, creativity and resilience shown by the team. For 2 decades, Harmony has proudly partnered with Enactors South Africa to empower the next generation of innovators, entrepreneurs and changemakers. Investing in education is central to Harmony's commitment to building thriving, future-ready communities. We thank every participant, finalist and stakeholders for making this remarkable 20-year journey one of innovation, opportunity and shared success. This message is brought to you by Harmony, proud platinum sponsor of Enactors South Africa for 20 years.
The archive remembers. The conversation continues. The Daily Discourse, more than talk, real understanding.
10:32 on the Daily Discourse, and we are continuing our conversation with Tsepiso Makwetla. She is the broadcaster whom we've been highlighting today as part of our 90th birthday celebrations. Very excited to have her with us as we continue the conversations on SAfm. And I want to take a couple of voice notes from listeners who are sending their good wishes to you, Tsepiso.
The brand Tsepiso Makwetla matters. During your tenure in SAfm, your meaningful contribution, commitment, and dedication is recorded. My gratitude for you is greater than the number of cat videos on the internet. Keep up the good work where you are, my dear sister. Chief Mashifan, thank you.
All right, do we have one more voice note for Tsepiso?
Greetings to all SAfm listeners and to you, JJ, Johan, and you know what? I must say that I've been turned into a complete avid listener of SAfm by Tsepiso Makwetla, and that time she was presenting having current affairs between 5 and 6, or I'm mistaken, but from 5 around I used to catch her there on the radio. Oh my word, what a presenter. Since then, never turned back. I always listen to SAfm. Terry Kisingeni in Cape Town.
Thank you so much, and you're more than welcome to keep those messages coming on 0614104107. Tsepiso, before I get into my next conversation, I just want to ask you about your memories regarding some of the people whose names were mentioned in that last text. Because I think it was a very unique time in the country. SAfm, to my mind, was in its heyday post-democracy, kind of helping transition the country to this new dispensation. And the personalities and the people were just so amazing at the same time.
Listen, and I'm sure if he is around, everybody would know Sig in Randburg.
Yes.
Sig in Randburg used to give me such a tough time. And I remember, I think at some point when I was leaving, it was very emotional, it was sad. He was actually crying. So we became a family, all of us. It had a family meeting type vibe.
Yes, yes.
Because there would be an issue, and I appreciated it because it was very robust conversation. It was also people who genuinely wanted to, get to the nuts and bolts of what is it going to take to fix the country. By that I mean transition the country, and also that there must be room for all of us, irrespective of political affiliation, irrespective of people's viewpoints. And the tough thing about doing the job that we do, Joanne, is that sometimes people get it in their heads that just because you ask a question is because that is what you believe.
Yes.
But, we have to surface as many opinions as possible,
yes,
and ensure that we take a conversation in places that people maybe were not thinking, or you do it in a manner that you are not hamstringing people to, quarantine themselves to a certain topic. So I enjoyed everybody, and it's always so beautiful to meet people who, and it's quite amazing. I remember going to a pharmacy in Bantry Bay, and this lady said, "Oh, I know who you are," and just by listening to my voice, which is absolutely fascinating. And Levi Singh, who was the G20 youth Sherpa, who's become a friend, he always laughs at me. He says, "I remember from the age of 6 listening to you on the radio," and I say, I don't like it when you say that, Levi, So it does make you feel like it's a part of your journey, and all of those people who are there were meant to be there to help you see things the way you did and experience them the way you did.
Yeah. Some beautiful memories there, Tsipiso. And I'm going to go move on to something else now. But of course, Tsipiso is going to be conducting an interview for us after 11 o'clock. So for old time's sake, you need to stay tuned to that to participate in the conversation. All right, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we're talking about mental health. Are you pushing yourself excessively at work? How are you dealing with the socioeconomic conditions in which we are all living as South Africans right now? And what kind of mental work needs to be done to keep yourself resilient through the current circumstances in which we find ourselves? We'll speak about all of that with 2 experts after the break.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAfm Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Looking for exclusive content, live events, and special broadcasts like the Madlanga Commission? Then connect to the all-new SAfm Connect stream. The Madlanga Commission, live and uninterrupted from 9:30 Monday to Friday. SAfm Connect brings you more of the conversations that matter. Listen anytime, anywhere by visiting connect.safm.co.za or stream directly on SABC Plus at sabc-plus.com. SAfm Connect. More conversations, more access. There's much more coming. Before there was the SAfm you know today, there was the English service. There was Radio South Africa, Radio South Africa, and there was a country going through extraordinary change.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Raphael.
From the darkness of apartheid.
I have to inform honourable members.
Through the states of emergency.
Earlier, it was reported an explosion had occurred at an ESCOM.
Through the release of Nelson Mandela.
Comrades and fellow South Africans, I greet you all.
Through the birth of a democratic South Africa.
As we know, elections do not create change, they create only the opportunity for change.
The conversations continued, and in 1995, a new SAfM emerged. A new country, a new voice, a new chapter. This August, SAfM looks back at the journey that brought us here. The voices, the moments, the people, the history. 90 years of conversation, a nation story, our shared future. SAfm turns 90 from 1 August. SAfm, the conversation continues. The Daily Discourse on SAfm, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
All right, 20 minutes to 11 on the Daily Discourse. And of course, I mentioned earlier that we are going to have this conversation that I hope will make a difference in the way you approach your work and managing the kind of stress around it. If you're feeling burnt out as a result of pushing yourself excessively hard at work, your poor earnings, the rising living costs you're having to deal with, or because your inability to find work has pushed you to the brink, have a listen to this conversation. The Sunday Times ran a pertinent article about how South Africans are struggling right now because of the socio-economic climate in this country. We thought we'd speak to Transformation Chair at the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology of South Africa, Dr. Refilwe Ramudibe, and Lynn Labuskaghni, SADAG Project Manager. Welcome to you both, and lovely to have you with us on the Daily Discourse. So, Dr. Ramudibe, let me start with you. What are South Africans reporting to helplines or telling their therapists about the state of their mental health in the current situation?
Good morning to the listeners, and good morning, JJ. A lot of the problems that a lot of employees are raising with their psychologists are being mentally and physically exhausted. I think the psychological exhaustion has become so prevalent in this day and age, as resulting in people feeling burnt out, feeling that they can't cope with the stresses that they're experiencing within their daily lives. So whether it's family, the family aspect of it, whether it's the socioeconomic aspect of it, and mostly also the workload that people are experiencing on a day-to-day basis, that they feel that they can't actually cope with all these things that are happening, and it's becoming quite a pandemic at this point in time.
Ms. Labuskaghni, what are the factors that are making people feel so hopeless?
Well, I think one of the important issues is talking the financial space. All these issues are that straw that breaks that camel's back as such. And they don't just stay at home. You bring it with them to work today. So at work, we're worrying about the cost of groceries, petrol, what's happening at the schools, your bond repayments, et cetera, et cetera. Or incredibly stressed at work, but at the same time knowing you can't leave because you're thinking, I can't risk this job. So you're never switching off. It creates that vicious cycle.
I'm interested to know, Dr. Ramudibe, when we look at the global picture, are South African workplaces more stressful environments than those of other countries?
Not necessarily so. I mean, if you look at the research globally, it's the stress that employees are experiencing. It actually is a global pandemic, and I think if you look at the way that technology has really contributed to people not being able to switch off, and whether you sit within the South African context or internationally or in another country, the fact that we've got an always on type of work environment where you're unable to switch off. I mean, your WhatsApp, it's always on, and 8 p.m. at night, you might get a message telling you that you've got an email that you have to respond to. And a lot of the other companies and organizations, if you look at how they operate, they're global organizations. So it means that your colleagues are sitting in another space in another country, and they might require you to be available at a particular time. So then it becomes a vicious cycle that that has been spoken about. It's not unique to South Africa. And even economically, if you look at the global economy as well, there's struggles across the globe. So it's become really a problem across the different workplaces and work environments in a global context, and not just South African.
Ms. Labuskaghni, how much of a role has COVID played in entrenching this culture where the boundaries between work and home have ruptured?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I think there are some good things that came out of COVID, such as the hybrid working and being able to, in some places, being able to work from home. But it did blur those boundaries. Yes. Before COVID, everybody had that, be it 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever your work hours were, you came home and that was it. And again, like the expert spoke, technology has advanced us so that we are accessible 24 hours a day, which all obviously creates that cesspool of a melting pot that's about to go.
Dr. Ramodibe, many people are speaking about how hard they push themselves to maintain their jobs in a country where many lack job security. What outcome does that have on the kind of people who find themselves pushing them so hard, both from a mental health and from a physical point of view?
There's actually a couple of negative impacts that it has on people. Not just physically, because it's also impacting on emotional. So we talk about mental health, but if a person is really lacking, good sleep, as an example, it becomes actually a negative impact into your health. So yes, the conversation is around mental health, but if you look at it systematically, there's other impacts that it has as well. It also impacts on your relationships with, whether it's your family relationships, whether it's your relationships with even co-workers at some point. Yes. So the negative impact, it actually goes then beyond just the stresses that you're experiencing within the work environment, which can be emotional, but it impacts on a holistic life, from a personal perspective.
Sorry, can I just add in?
Yes, please go ahead, Ms. Laviscani.
Because burnout, for instance, isn't simply just being tired. Yeah. It's more than just having a bad week at work, and people are experiencing exhaustion, emotional attachment, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and exactly that. It's impacting family life, relationships. It's such a big challenge that we have to deal with.
I mean, what you're saying is really important then. Perhaps you also want to build on that, Dr. Ramodibe. People can often not tell the difference when they're just exhausted from working hard or actually experiencing burnout. What is the difference between the symptoms of either?
Yeah, so being tired is really like, you could be feeling tired on a day-to-day basis now. However, when you're looking at burnout, it's more of a prolonged tiredness. It goes beyond just being physically tired. It's about, it's your psychological well-being being impacted in the long run. So it's the consistency, when you leave the tiredness to continue for longer periods of time, then it actually then results into burnout, where you can't really then respond to it by rest. Whereas when you're tired, you can simply just, have a nap or sleep, and you can recuperate. However, with burnout, the recovery takes even much longer of a period. It could even take more than 3 months or longer period of time to actually get back to your normal self again. Whereas tiredness is really just a physical being tired now, and you can actually recuperate quicker. So, yeah, that's the difference.
And tell me, Ms. Laviscani, are people actually seeking help? Do they recognize that this is a problem that they need help for? It could be physical health from a medical doctor, a mental help from a therapist or a wellness expert or a counselor, or are people simply accepting this is how life is now?
So that's quite a difficult question to answer. We are definitely seeing an increase in the number of calls to our helplines. So people are definitely reaching out. Mm-hmm. However, not all of them actually understand that it's potentially burnout that they're developing. So yes, people are reaching out, but not always for the right reasons. And I think normalizing being stressed the whole time, and that's a problem.
Ms. Laviscani, tell me this. If workplaces are responsible for increasing the workload of their staff without actually, bringing on board the kind of requirements to help those staff navigate the difficulties, how exactly are staff expected to cope if that intervention is not made?
And I think this is also where employers have a role to play, and they need to realize it. So they do need to start looking at workloads, staffing, unrealistic deadlines, etc. But also right the way through to an EAP is not just a tick box, and actively encouraging staff to reach out. It's about normalizing having those mental health conversations, doing a proper check-in, not just the tick box of, oh, I'm glad you're fine. It's like, how are you really doing? And mean it.
Dr. Ramodibe, I think that's very important what Ms. Labuschagne is saying there, because you'll see companies tick this box in terms of maybe having a wellness center, have people come in and offer back massages every now and then, or do a nice little care package for their staff every now and then. It doesn't actually respond to the kind of difficulties that the staff are having. How does that wah-wah notion of wellness actually need to be revisited for the purposes of what people actually need in the workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very critical question, because a lot of employers have what we call employee assistance programs, and those actually run on a day-to-day basis where access is actually provided to employees. However, research has shown that not a lot of employees actually take up on those programs because of various reasons. And I think, some of the reasons should be, that we could identify things such as the fear that employers might find out, stigma that is associated with mental well-being. And I think what that actually then speaks to is the organizational cultures that exist within our environments, because it doesn't matter, to your point, it doesn't matter if you have a hoo-ha wellness week or whatever the cost might be. It's all about just, showing pictures that you really care about employees. But how are you actually then driving a culture that is, that has psychological safety for employees to express when they're not okay, to express when they feel like they've got a lot of workload. So most of the programs that are ran by organizations are really, not necessarily addressing the systemic issues that exist within organizations. And I think what a lot of my colleagues should actually be looking at in the human resources space is, how do we then address those organizational culture issues that exist that actually result in people feeling the way that they're feeling? Because it really doesn't matter whatever we do or programs that we put in place if the culture is not conducive enough for employees to feel safe.
Ms. Labuschagne, Dr. Ramodibe is saying something really interesting there, and I remember a friend telling me, for example, she had a brother who worked in the police force, and the police force did have counselors they could speak to, but if you were seen to be going to that therapist, or your senior managers were aware that you were going to make use of that facility, then there was a tendency to think that you weren't resilient and that you weren't good material for a promotion within those ranks. How do we destigmatize employees making use of real therapy options that ought to be made available to them?
Again, a very difficult question. And stigma is real, and it's not going to go away overnight. And again, it's about unpacking with managers and all how to keep that confidential, the importance of it. I think that's also where SADAG's helplines come in so well, because a lot of companies don't want to use the internal support structures available to them for fear of stigma. So instead of making it harder for people to reach out for help, it's like, let's simplify it, And the whole concept of just take some time off isn't realistic either. It's about enabling managers to share practical coping, creating a more supportive workplace, normalizing those conversations, and it has to start from the top down.
I think we need to hear from our listeners on this issue, and I'd like to play a voice note that talks about health support in the workplace.
Good morning, Joanne. This is Marvelous in Durban. Hey, Joanne, I so wish that every company can have some mental health. I don't know whether psychological helpers or social workers, something like that. Especially in retail industry, people are suffering. I'm talking from experience. I lost my dad in 2023. I told them like I had more than 35 leave days. I told them that I'm not feeling well mentally. I'm not okay. I need some time home. They forced me to come to work. I came back to work. I made mistakes and eventually got fired.
Sure.
People are suffering, especially in retail industry. People are really suffering. I just wish something can be done because those supervisors and managers in those retail stores that we shop at, it's not looking good at all.
Sure. I'm so sorry to hear that, and thank you for sharing that with us. That must have been such a difficult thing to go through. Dr. Ramudibe, I mean, grief is one of the things that occurs most commonly, among people in a working environment. I'm shocked to hear what has happened to this listener of ours.
Yeah, I think, JJ, what saddens me about what the listener just shared with us, one thing that I've realized and I've noticed across the, especially with retail employees or clerical type of work, people don't actually understand their rights. I don't know what the role of because they belong in different societies that actually should be helping in terms of awareness. There's a lot of the things that actually go wrong in these organizations and in whether it's shops, whether it's restaurants, or whatever the context might be. And one thing that actually always that I always highlight is the fact that people don't actually understand their rights as employees. And we've got labor laws in this country, and I think that's an appreciation that I have with the South African labor law context. There are so many laws that protect employees from such issues that are rising. However, I think the lack of awareness and the lack of information that people are privy to. That's what makes me sad, I think, as a professional in this industry, because people don't know. There's a lot of employers could actually find themselves in hot waters for some of the things that they get people to endure. So I think the unions, for me, the question around the role of unions, especially for people that work in retail, because I'm sure if you ask this guy, he would tell you that he pays a union fee on a monthly basis, but our unions are actually not doing enough to educate our people on their rights and what is allowed and what's not allowed in the context.
So, Ms. Labuschagne, of course, we need to be able to offer our listeners some kind of hope and some kind of a tool, perhaps, to help them get themselves out of these situations if they find themselves drowning in them. What would your best advice be to them?
Well, my knee-jerk would be to phone SADC. There is a counsellor waiting 24/7 to help you navigate, create coping skills, talk about self-help tips. And find ongoing help within their means. And that's the superpower of SADC. It's no one-size-fits-all help. But I think it's also about making mental health part of an everyday workplace conversation. The more courage that sort of getting leaders to lead by example, making sure that people can have access to support early, making employees... I think a lot of places, we always try and make people prove that they're struggling, And again, it's encouraging early intervention, because if you reach out early, help is easy. When you've waited until you're in crisis, it's a lot more complicated.
Won't you please give us the contact number for SADC in case our listeners would like to use that number, please? That
would definitely help. 24/7, it's a toll-free helpline number, so you do not need airtime to phone. Okay. There's the 0800 567 567 or 0800 456 789.
Okay, really, really easy to remember. So thank you so much for that. And I want to thank you, Dr. Ramudibe, for your contribution to this as well. I think you've cracked open this issue to us so beautifully. Thank you, Ms. Labuschagne, for adding your input there as well. And I think we've been able to get a sense of what people are feeling like in the workplace. I want to give you that number again. If you're feeling desperate, if you're feeling hopeless and you find that you're not coping with the situation, do not wait till it's worse. Please make use of this number. I'll give you two numbers, in fact. 0800 567 567, that's 0800 567 567, or 0800 456 789. 0800 456 789. That brings us to 11 o'clock here on the Daily Discourse. Time for your latest news bulletin with Ondela Mbana.
In our top stories, Madlanga Commission examines messages linked to cell phone interception technology and teaching and learning disrupted after fatal nuclear shooting. Good morning. The Madlanga Commission has heard evidence of WhatsApp messages detailing plans for a demonstration of sophisticated cell phone surveillance technology known as IMSI Catcher or Grabber. The messages shows conversations between suspended Police Sergeant Fanning Nkosi and Sean Jacobs, a representative linked to Czech technology company Infosys. Chief Evidence Leader, Advocate Matthew Chaskelson, told the Commission a draft letter sent by Jacobs was intended to be placed on an SAPS letterhead by Nkosi to facilitate the demonstration of the interception equipment. The contents of the messages were read into the record by Chaskelson after they were extracted from the cell phone of the late taxi boss, Mswazi Msibi.
So an IMSI catcher is something that catches a mobile identity. And in colloquial terms, it's a grabber. What it does is it's a surveillance device that mimics a legitimate cell phone tower, cellular tower. And it tricks nearby mobile phones to connect with it rather than the cell phone tower. And then you can download what is on the communications from the mobile phone that are connected to your grabber as opposed to the nearby cell phone tower.
The Gauteng Department of Education says teaching and learning in Nuclear West of Johannesburg has been disrupted following a shooting incident that claimed the lives of 4 youngsters at the weekend. 5 victims were shot inside a flat on Saturday. However, the motive for the attack is not yet known. One of the injured is a learner from RW Fix Secondary School. Gauteng Education Department spokesperson Onwabile Lubelwana says the department is prioritizing the safety of learners and educators amid the recent violence.
Learners who missed their preliminary examinations because of the unsafe environment will be afforded an opportunity to write. MEC Maile is also troubled by the proliferation of dangerous weapons, including guns, among young people. The department will monitor school safety while relying on the South African Police Service, including the anti-gang unit and other law enforcement agencies, to maintain law and order.
Residents of Oudtshoorn in the Little Karoo remain without electricity for a 4th consecutive day following a power outage on Saturday. The power outage occurred after a fault on an Eskom line which supplies the town. Residents have become increasingly frustrated. A local business owner, Angelique Erasmus.
I have personally already spent approximately 2,500 Rand on petrol for our generator. I also know of a local business owner who has already spent more than 20,000 on diesel just to keep his doors open. There are of course also concerns about safety, particularly at night when most of the town is in darkness. Frustration among some residents also started to boil over last night, with tyres being burnt and rocks placed on the road towards the wrist.
Protesting sugar industry workers affiliated with the Food and Allied Workers Union, FAU, says they prepared to prolong their strike action until a wage increase agreement is reached. Wage talks between FAU and the Sugar Manufacturing and Refining Employers Association have collapsed. The union says over 5,000 workers are protesting across 15 plants. The media officer, Dominique Martin.
As FAO recognize the economic pressures faced by the sugar industry, but we feel it's unfair for workers to be the brunt for the structural crisis the sector faces, especially when FAO warned government about the effects of the implementation of a sugar tax years ago. With the amount of workers out, we definitely slow down production. So we are willing to strike for as long as it takes to get a 6%, 6.5%. There's a total striking number of 5,778 workers on strike at about 15 plants at the moment.
And finally, U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Jared Kushner, has expressed hopes of progress after holding talks on Gaza over the past 2 days with Israeli and Hamas leaders. However, no significant breakthrough appears to have been made. After lengthy talks with the Israeli Prime Minister, Kushner said there should now be progress in about a month. The BBC's Lucy Williamson reports.
Mr. Netanyahu's office said it had been agreed to establish 2 working groups, one on sanitation and clean water for Gaza and one on disarmament and demilitarization, which, it said, both Israel and the Board of Peace were determined should be completed before any reconstruction happens. Israel's Prime Minister had already refused point blank to accept the next stage of Donald Trump's peace plan, despite Hamas agreeing to it.
Recapping the top story, the Madlanga Commission has heard evidence of WhatsApp messages detailing plans for a demonstration of sophisticated cell phone surveillance technology. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
Why do we have a police protection? When I took the initiative, therefore, to say, what about communicating with the then Minister of Bantu Education to say, can you explain, what are you trying to achieve? But he decides to send the police to come and arrest me.
South Africa carries the weight of history and the power of possibility. In every township, village, city, in every skyline, in every anthem, there is resilience. South Africa, diverse, powerful, enduring.
This is what we are becoming. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. Years of questions, 90 years of answers, 90 years of South Africans.
SAfm, my name is Tuluang Moskiti, all the way from Val FM. Congratulations on 90 incredible years of telling South African stories. As someone who lives and breathes radio, I know that it's never just about the microphone, it's about the lives you touch. For 9 decades, you guys have been doing that.
Voices may have changed. Times may have changed, but the conversation continues. SAfm 90 years. The Daily Discourse on SAfm with Joanne Joseph, unpacking the issues that matter. The Daily Discourse on SAfm, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
11 minutes past 8, we are into the final hour of the Daily Discourse. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Joanne Joseph, and with me is Tshepiso Makwetla, and she is co-hosting this last hour with me. I'm so thrilled that you've come in to do it with me, Tshepiso. Thank you.
No, thank you for inviting me. It's always good to, and it's a different experience. Remember I was saying to you that there's a compulsion to kind of, anchor when you realize, no, I'm a guest, but then I'm a co-host. And yes.
Yes, so I'm going to put you to work in this hour, I promise. I want to take a quick call from Loid in Giani, who would like to chat about your work. Loid, good morning.
Good morning, Joanne and Tshepiso on the side there. So my dear sister, we embrace you as women. We love you all, because for my experience at SAfm, we had got courageous presenters such as your Tshepiso there, your Rowena, your Seki, your Tabiso Sikwane, may her soul rest in peace as well, and others. What I liked most about Tshepiso is that she was robustly engaged guests and the listeners alike to a degree whereby it will result in a sort of a capside or a bitter argument, if I can put it in that way. JJ, it is imperative for yourselves as journalists to conduct a thorough research in whatever topic that you have to ventilate on the table. So Tshepiso, she was one of those journalists who will research her work to an extent that if you do not know your story as a guest or an invitee or us as listeners, she will take you to task. So we appreciate and embrace you ladies, because whatever you are doing to us as a country specifically, it's very commendable. My last point, my dear sister, is that no one should feel offended by me saying that the late Vuyombuli, he remains my all-time media personality. And I'm not taking anything out of anyone else, but each and every person has got his or a favorite. So we are celebrating the 90th birthday for SAfm, all of us, wherever we are. So we appreciate you, ladies. Keep up the good work that you are doing. Thank you for inviting Tsepiso there.
Oh, thank you, Lois. Thank you for that lovely call.
Yeah, it's and he's absolutely right. This is one of the first things you learn when you get into broadcasting, and that is you're not going to be for everybody. And as we all have our own preferences, either you resonate with someone's experiences, their thought process, and this is something that I wish our younger charges could also understand, that there's room for all of us.
Yeah.
There's room for all of us, whether it's on one platform or in one sector. I can't be Joanne Joseph, and you can never be me.
Yeah,
and we need to celebrate that difference and uplift each other, understanding that. And we all bring something different to the table.
And that's what makes it interesting, right? The kind of variety that comes with broadcasting, all this pool of personalities that all bring something different based on their life experience, their subjectivities, their level of training, and their experience in certain different places. But I think it was very, very good of Loid to mention your contribution as a woman broadcaster in this country. And Tsepiso, I don't know when this moment happened for you. This happened to me a few years ago, where I had the realization brought on by a very senior manager in radio, that there are people who are going to like you, there are people who are going to dislike you, and that may be regardless of what you do. But the fact is, you've got to find your through way, you've got to find your voice, and that is not easy to do as a woman, but particularly when the conversations become heated, when people are passionate about what they're saying, and you are passionate about what you're saying. It's sometimes quite difficult to negotiate those difficult conversations, isn't it?
Look, Joanne, it really is, but I think particularly you as the convener of the conversation need to understand that who you're serving, in this case, as we are a public broadcaster, that is your most important stakeholder. So sometimes you're just going to have to grit your teeth and get through certain conversations, irrespective of how obnoxious or rude somebody is, that you are doing a job. And you are not the job. And yes, some people do take you on as if you are the job. There are people who come in there like, yeah, that's hippie, so I'm going to put it in a place. You just have to understand, as you say, some of these issues are highly emotive, and the people's lives and livelihoods at stakes. But also, what is sad is where political contestation then leads to a shutting down of any dissonance, that even asking a question becomes a problem. Because when you're very grounded in whatever it is that you're saying, you ought to be comfortable in fielding difficult questions. In fact, I always say, even when I do media training, that is what helps you put your point across, that if you really do believe in what you're espousing or whatever cause that you're a part of, that is an opportunity to drive home your point. And yes, we've all had very uncomfortable situations, and there are people who are kind and people who are not so kind. What we all need are mentors. And I remember I've had a few women who have gone out of their way to mentor me. And there are women who mentor you without even telling you they're mentoring you. You have real substance to look up to. So it's also sad that the media landscape has changed in such a way that, you know, the younger ones who are coming through, we don't have, and it's not necessarily about the altruism, but we don't have quite the same understanding of what broadcasting is, what the role of broadcasting is, you know. So it's par for the course, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, that's true. Mike in Middelburg is on the line to us. Mike, good morning.
And morning, Trepiso.
Mike in Middelburg, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How lovely to hear.
Thank you.
To hear, you know, the family coming together, you know,
Yes, the
at home.
SAfm
Because,
family.
yes.
Thank you so much. You know, I am recalling you used to come at 6 o'clock after Mandla Shongwe. Mandla Shongwe had a music show from 5 to 6.
Yes.
And I remember I had a debate against one of the regular callers, and you made me a winner. And my present was to choose a list of songs, and Mandla Shongwe played all those songs. Yeah, so I remember vividly. So, thank you so much for bringing back that nostalgic moment, you know, by being here on the radio.
No,
Yeah, I was so happy.
We exist because you are, you know. We often forget that we don't do it for ourselves, that we do it to bring together all of these people and these ideas of voices together. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah. Tshepiso, there was something that I actually didn't get a moment to ask you about earlier. And that's, of course, there is your public-facing work, and then there's a lot of work you do behind the scenes. And, of course, as with all of us, there are causes that are really close to your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done a lot of work with the United Nations and other non-governmental organizations and civil society movements that deal particularly with maternal health, child health, and so forth. Just remind us a little bit about what you're doing behind the scenes there.
So I am MNCH, or Mom Connect Ambassador for the Department of Health, and what that is about maternal newborn child health care. My story was something that I felt was very important to talk about because I had a fresh stillborn in 2009. And on the 5th year anniversary of my child's death, I realized that there was still a lot of newborn deaths that were being recorded. And I think it was in 2008 or 2009 where there was about 11 children who died as a result of Klebsiella. Yes. And I couldn't understand why we were still, you know, contending with that. And there are obviously lots of reasons why we have the public healthcare system that we have, but it was important to me to talk about it so that people understand that sometimes people forget that we are human, that we have the same experiences that they have. And there is a stigma that is attached to maternal deaths, newborn deaths, because there are also various beliefs around it. But I wanted to be a part of the solution. I wanted to know what is wrong, what can we do if it's about public campaigns that, you know, highlight awareness. And it was actually also, if you remember, the transition from the MDGs to the SDGs. Yes. So I also was very fortunate in the sense that I was asked to lead a panel at the UN in Geneva, and it was 189 countries or something, and we had to look at those 8 goals and come up with a common understanding of when we transition to the SDGs, what are we saying needs to be done, and what are the imbalances? Because we know equity is one of the major issues, whether it comes to the public health systems themselves. We've seen that during COVID-19, that when it comes to the resources, be it funding or availability of vaccines, the global south does face a very desperate situation. So, yes, SDG 3.2 is what I am very passionate about. I'm a Gates Foundation gatekeeper for that particular SDG, and I've worked with the Gates Foundation. There's the WHO, which is particularly WHO Afro,
Yes.
and have done quite a bit of work with them on various issues, and that includes polio, that includes TB. But for me, the whole point is about public health, and universal health coverage is something I'm very, very passionate about, because we live in very unequal societies. And it is important that people have access to quality health care. We can't have a situation where young women are forced to give birth in waiting rooms, or women lose their children because whether it's an unclean or unsafe environment, or they're not given medical attention, or they can't even go for their weekly, or, well, it starts off with monthly, then it's obviously at some point weekly checkups. So I'm very, very passionate about that, because what is the point of us occupying the spaces that we do when we can't mirror back to society the challenges that society faces?
I mean, that's such a great question, and maybe let's just leave it there for the moment as we take a short break.
Every nation leaves something behind. A song, a poem, a painting, a performance, a story. This is ours. Join us as we honor the creators shaping South Africa's future at the National Arts and Culture Awards 2026. Friday, 21 August, Sun City. Then watch the primetime broadcast on SABC 1, Saturday, 22 August at 8 p.m. NACA 2026. Celebrating our nation's creative excellence.
Running a courier business is so hard these days. The petrol price, the breakdown costs, and so much more. Luckily, I'm with My Way Business Insurance. I get to save up to 20% on my insurance premiums for my vehicles and goods in transit. And just like that, I have more money for all my costs.
Switch to My Way Business Insurance and save up to 20% on your vehicles and goods in transit. Real businesses, real savings. Call us on 0860 646464 today for a quote. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. Standard rates and T's and C's apply.
Every generation has a story. Every generation has questions. Every generation has a voice. For 90 years, SAfm has been part of the conversation. This August, we listen back to the voices that brought us here. We celebrate the people who shaped our journey, and we listen for the voices that will shape what comes next, including the launch of a new annual SAfm property. This Women's Month, we are in search of an SAfm woman. 4 extraordinary women, 4 extraordinary journeys. One question: what does it mean to be an SAfm woman? SAfm 90 years, women, a new voice. 90 years of conversation, a nation story, our shared future. From 1 August, SAfm. SAfm is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAfm Radio.
Right, that brings us to 11:24 here on the Daily Discourse. We've had a bit of trouble reaching our guest, but Tsepiso and I are going to continue the conversation here. And I want your voice to be heard on the issue of Tsepiso's work. So let's start, first of all, with a call on Tsepiso. And I'm going to connect with Tsepiso in Joburg, who wants to comment on Tsepiso's work. Tsepiso, good morning.
Good morning, Joanne, and good morning. Hello, sis. Njani? Cool.
Is that
Joe?
you? Is that you?
Yes, that's you.
Oh, hello, Joanne Joseph. This is Tsepiso Setole. This is
the one and only.
This is my partner in crime from the get.
I had to call in.
Oh, yeah.
Joanne,
lovely
I had
to
to
hear
call
your
in.
voice, Tubbs.
The ultimate professional Tsepiso was, I think, in the early 90s or late 90s when we both started in Auckland Park. We were young. We were crazy. We did everything that youngins do. But there's one thing that I always knew we had to do, in the morning, 4 o'clock, where it was, I think there was a show on before Morning Live on the 180 Degrees show, whether we're doing that or whether she was coming for SAfm, the ultimate professional, always had a smile. Probably one of the best or better anchors to work with in the industry, always gives you space. And yes, she definitely charted a way, especially for young ones in the industry. And for us as well, males, you know, one can say you look up to people like Vuyo, one of the callers made. Yes, there are those. But we never forget what it means learning from our female colleagues, how to treat or navigate a particular, you know, distinct issue, as in when speaking about females or women. There's always something to learn, and Tsepiso was one of those who I loved learning from and working with. So it's good to hear your voice again.
You
That's
know
all.
what, and Thabiso, you know, there's a lot to be said about the people you surround yourself with, and I know that is what that camaraderie, that friendship was built upon. I was just telling Joanne that my training was with Robert, and we were just, it was myself, Thabiso, Xolani, Robert, Gwazi, Abo Fresh. We all used to hang around together.
Bunch.
But we were a crazy bunch, but we were all about the work.
Yes.
You could go party, but in the morning we wake each other up. Hey, Baba, come, let's go. It's time for work.
And deliver on an amazing standard.
Yeah, and he is such a professional. He is meticulous about his work, and I admire him as a broadcaster, and always enjoy being with him as a friend as well.
Tubbs, thank you so much for that lovely call. One of our listeners at Tsepiso says, good morning, JJ and Tsepiso. The first time I knew about Tsepiso was in 2008 during the formation of COPE, when I saw her interviewing Reverend Dandala and Mbazima Shilowa on SABC3. Up to today, I can't tell what the contents of the interview were because I was totally taken by that beautiful face. Never missed a single of her shows on SAfm until she left. Thanks, P. Makwa Buta Bute Lesotho. So
No, thank you very much. At least somebody thinks I'm easy on the eye. I've been told I have a face for radio. So
please don't listen to them.
Teasing.
All right, and let's take two voice notes that were sent a little bit earlier on your work.
Good morning, Joanne. One word to describe Tsepiso's tenure in radio so far: completely unbiased. Completely unbiased. Thank you.
Hey, Joanne, thank you. It's Tsepi there. Thank you, Tsepi, for coming back for a while, so to speak. Yeah, Tsepi reminds me of Nayeli Pondon. I think Nayeli Pondon also must be brought in here. Yeah, Tsepi, with your so-called robust debate. I remember when I was in Christian. Hey, it would be tough, really. One guy said that Tsepi wants a person with clear mind when coming to radio, with evidence, with everything. Yeah. Thank you very much, Tsepi. Bye-bye.
Thank you, my brother. Yes. So I'm very, and I know we haven't read this, but I see there is a question asking about how female presenters or anchors wear their hair on television.
Right. Shall I read that one out quickly?
Why don't you read that one?
Okay,
I
that's
think
a good one.
Let's do that.
Hi, Tsepi. So why is it that black TV women journalists wear wigs when appearing on TV? Are you guys compelled to wear wigs instead of your natural hair? I'm worried about little black girls who watch you guys on TV. That's from Ramot Lewatsi.
You know, it's a very topical issue, and it's a long-standing debate. Joanne, how I present myself, I believe, is something that I can own fully. I've got braided hair today because that's the hairstyle I wanted. The ideas that are inside the cranium that is being covered, I think it's a very important question to ask. Why do women wear artificial hair? Sometimes it's a personal taste. Yes, there's some people who struggle with who they are, their inner selves, in terms of whether it's racial, whether it's aesthetic. I think people are just very linear about it, as if you wear a wig, if you wear a weave, it means you don't love yourself as a black child. I don't know. I interact with people who are very open-minded, who know that I'm an Africanist at core. I'm a Pan-Africanist, and I live that life. So I am sorry if my wearing a wig or a weave is something that offends you and that makes you wonder whether I am proud to be black. It's a subject that I think women should not be subjected to all the time. The ideas that come out of a person, the way a person presents and lives their lives, I think that's very important. What kind of mentorship work are you doing for young black girls? Let's start looking at that. Education. I love books, so I go around, I donate books, I make sure young girls meet, whoever they look up to so that they can learn more about that industry, that sector. Deal with those things to me and not how I wear my hair. I'm sorry.
That is a good note on which to end before we throw to the news. We'll continue these conversations in a moment. Right now, 11:31, Jwalane Tulungwepe standing by.
Thank you, Joanne. Good morning. Making headlines. More than 40,000 students across 76 institutions of higher learning were improperly funded by NSFAS to the value of 5.1 billion rand, with only 2 billion rand recovered so far. This is according to findings released today by Public Protector Advocate Koleka Gcaleka following a systematic investigation into challenges facing the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. The Madlanga Commission has heard evidence of WhatsApp messages detailing plans for a demonstration of sophisticated cell phone surveillance technology known as IMSI catchers or grabbers. The messages show conversations between suspended police sergeant Fani Nkosi and Sean Jacobs, a representative linked to Czech technology company Innovasis. And finally, Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has welcomed the discovery of a large oil reserve near the Amazon coast, despite opposition to drilling in the area from environmentalists. I will have details on these and other stories at noon.
In case you missed it.
Can you respond to the allegation that he made against you, that you told him he would not be fired, but seemingly changed your mind?
No, leadership is tough. You've got to make decisions based on the facts before you. And if you never ever prepare to change your mind, then you, by definition, are not going to be a very good leader forever.
Is that a concession that you did, in fact, then renege on your word?
I had to make a tough decision based on what was happening in agriculture that I thought was best for the party and best for the country.
I'm going to take it as a yes.
I stand by that.
Gordon Hill-Lewis, the leader of the Democratic Alliance.
That was National Briefing this morning with Kathy Mutlatlana. SAfm.
South Africa became a democratic nation in 1994. The end of apartheid marked the beginning of a new era built on freedom and constitutional democracy.
The people that died for us on the many marches that they had, especially the ones on June 16, were from students who had dreams that were bigger than themselves. They strived for more and they saw a future that was much bigger than them.
This is what we are becoming. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
What is a nation without its stories? Without its music, without its artists, without its streamers. This August, we honor the people who give South Africa its voice. The National Arts and Culture Awards 2026, 21 August, Sun City. Then join millions of South Africans for the SABC1 primetime broadcast on 22 August at 8 p.m. Because when we celebrate creativity, we celebrate South Africa.
Looking for exclusive content, live events, and special broadcasts like the Madlanga Commission? Then connect to the all-new SAfm Connect stream. The Madlanga Commission, live and uninterrupted from 9:30 Monday to Friday. SAfm Connect brings you more of the conversations that matter. Listen anytime, anywhere by visiting connect.safm.co.za or stream directly on SABC Plus at sabc-plus.com. SAfm Connect. More conversations, more access. There's much more coming. The Daily Discourse. More than talk, real understanding.
11:35 on the Daily Discourse, and we're going to take some of your calls and your voice notes as we head towards the last leg of our show. Ras has been holding for some time. Ras, thanks so much for your patience. What's on your mind?
Thanks a lot, Johan. Good morning to you and Tsepiso. What a double deadly combination. And happy birthday, because SAfm is a nonagenarian.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for that. You know, it is SAfm that's 90, not Tsepiso and me, right, Ras?
No, I said SAfm.
Possibly.
But yes, you are part of the history. You are part of the 90th birthday celebration. Yes. I think you're scared of growing up, both of you. Anyway, I don't blame you. Ladies don't say their age, isn't it, Sepi? And you, Joanne. Yeah, just to be honest. Seriously. No, I wanted to talk about white privilege, you know.
Yes.
That happened just recently at the Madlanga Commission. Have you seen what happened to Mary DeHaas, the supposed professor? And no action further was taken against her. The very other case in principle was the man who was masquerading as a forensic investigator, so highly qualified, Paul O'Sullivan, only to find that he has matric. He even walked out of the Madlanga Commission. What happened? What are the consequences? I think we can just chat about that. You will see what white privilege is in South Africa.
Thank you, Ras.
What's your take on that?
Yeah. Sebi, do you want to go first?
Look, I think it's problematic in general. Look, we live in a society that's increasingly about certification. Yet we are the same society that when somebody is given an honorary doctorate, we insist on somebody being called Dr. So-and-so. And I think the whole point about it is whether somebody is qualified to do a job. And it is absolutely wrong if it is selective in its castigation. Nobody should parade as somebody that they're not, because I think it's dangerous. There was, I forget the young man who was in Bloemfontein who was, Doctor Who was parading as a medical doctor.
Yes.
It's entirely dangerous, but you know, and Joanna, I'm about to throw the cat amongst the pigeons here, because then you find that there are people who don't have those qualifications, and somehow somebody who is an advocate and wins cases in court. I then say to myself, what questions should we be asking ourselves as society here? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it is in no way excusable. But what questions should we be asking ourselves in society? And we keep on saying that we need to create an economic model that's going to ensure that we employ people and who are employed in positions where they have a decent standard of living. And it's been agreed that not all of us need degrees.
Yes.
So why you need to fake one is then another question that I'm sending back to society. What is it that forces people to do those kinds of things, and what is it that makes them get away with it? Obviously, it says a lot about the rigor of our systems that police whether people are qualified to do what they do. But then again, you get, unfortunately, we see it in our political sphere as well, that there are people who are given high-level positions to do the work that the people who should be doing it don't even get past the door because of the gatekeeping.
Yes, yeah. Well, Tsepiso, I think you've answered that for us, and many of these voice notes are coming in on the conversations we've been having, and I think, like me, this listener is is stuck on something you said earlier that let me catch my breath for a moment. And this is about losing a baby on that last day. And I want to listen to this voice note on that.
Good morning. I don't know whether I'm out of line, but I still remember it was 2013. My ex-girlfriend was pregnant. For the whole duration of 9 months, the pregnancy was all right. And then it was a due date was on the 16th of August. Right on that 16th of August, we lost our child. I lost my boy. I couldn't understand on the last day when he about to give birth, we lost a boy. I don't know. I never recovered. But I'm trying to soldier on. Thank you. This is Manzini Kabecha.
Manzini, thank you for sharing that with us.
And it's a very difficult thing to go through, Joanne, and there's an African saying that a parent must never bury their child.
Yes.
And I think also as a society, we don't know how to have these conversations. And I'm not saying that it ought to be well-curated conversations, that there are right questions to ask, but we need to have platforms, a space where you are able to have those conversations, because then we are able to help each other heal. And it's difficult because sometimes somebody will say, oh, I also had a miscarriage, oh, I also had a stillborn, it's not a competition. It's not about who had greater pain. It's about what structures exist in society to support people through these kinds of things. And I want to say to Zega, Manzini, and all of those who have been through that experience, or you know somebody who has, it's just good to know that there's a shoulder to lean on.
Yeah, and make it clear to people that you're the person who's prepared to be that shoulder. One of you says, good morning, Joanne and Sis Tipiso, streaming the show, and Sis Tipiso refusing to age. She was a very tough interviewer. Nice hearing her on the airways again, says Mtunzi.
Hello, Mtunzi.
And then another of our listeners says, hi, Joanne, I've been hoping to see the face behind the voice. Finally, today is the day, and the cherry on the top is the person next to you, Tsepiso Makwetla, whom I've been wondering where in the world has she disappeared to. Good to see you, Tsepiso, and to hear that you're still on the airwaves somewhere where I will begin to follow you as well, so I can hear and learn the proper and correct way of articulating some of these words.
Thank you.
It's lovely.
And you know, Joanne, I just want to say, because it also goes to the English language thing as well, because people need to be aware that we all speak differently, right? And there's no standard. It's just about whether you are audible, whether somebody can understand you. And you will know that when you learn a different language. The pronunciation and all of those things are important because some words are similar. So you could be using the wrong word for something that you want to say. So in the same way, I say people should not be policed for how they wear their hair, because in a progressive society, we must understand that there are various reasons. But I appreciate people who are authentic. It's not about the accent, and I'm thanking those of you who love the way I speak. I'm encouraging other people to know that you will come and will love the way you speak, because you will put in the hard work. Yeah. You are intent on making sure that you study the research that is needed, but we can hear you're audible. It goes both ways, these things, you know. Definitely. Somebody can compliment you with the very thing that somebody uses to insult you.
True that, true. One of you says, and thank you for this, we really missed Tsepiso on SAfm, a short and sweet message there. And let's listen to this voice note on SAfm profiling women anchors.
90 years of questions, 90 years of answers, 90 years of South Africans.
This is Violetu Zombola of the ATM. Happiest of birthdays to SAfm.
Reaching 90 years for a station that is proudly South African, tells South African stories, is a big, big achievement and milestone.
Voices may have changed, times may have changed, but the conversation continues. SAfm 90 years. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
All right, 11:45. I just wanted to listen to this last voice note because I thought it was a good.
Good morning, Joanne, and it's a piece. Wow, my favorite piece. I used to call her the Black American, and also thank you, SFM. I think SFM is the only radio station. Not that I think, I know, it is the only radio station that gives women prime time slots alone, not accompanied by male presenters, because. There was Sakina in the morning and Tepiso in the afternoon, and Tepiso became the first SFM presenter to do First Take SAfM before Elvis Presley. And now we've got Kathy, Joanne, Sakina, and Bridget. You'll never see or you'll never find this in another radio station except for SAfM. Thank you so much. Marvelous in Durban.
Marvelous, thank you. And I tell you, that was very intentional. And I must pay tribute to Tony Sodler, the station manager, and Ferdinand Mabelane, our programming manager, because they wanted the first three voices on air in the morning to be the voices of women. And that's what they've done. And Tsepiso, I think this is a good way to end, marking the contribution that women like you have made in the industry over the years and continue to make.
Well, thank you, Joanne. And as you say, it's beautiful to see that there is an intentionality about it, because sometimes when you talk about equality, it's somewhat cosmetic, that whole tokenism behind it, when really you must field your best players, and that's all we're saying.
Yeah. Well, Tsepiso, thank you. I think we fielded our best this morning.
We did. High five.
Thank you for being with us, and that is the note on which we're going to wrap it up today. Many thanks to Tsepiso Makwetla and to the team as always, and we're going to hand over to the book reading now, followed by the fantastic Sakina Kamwendo, another of our fantastic SAfM women, at 12 o'clock. She'll bring you update at noon. Till tomorrow, take care. Have a wonderful one. Bye-bye.
SAfM presents another episode of the book, The Invisible People, by Phuthuma Nhleko, read by Simpiwe Kwana. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised.
It should be no surprise, then, that there are striking similarities between many African cultural practices and those of Egypt's ancient civilizations. These similarities were on display in the early 2000s at the Metropolitan Museum of Art